the EBC cannot come up with something to rectify the situation if the law does not say what that is. They cannot just make it up on their own. They cannot just use common sense. The law has to say it, and if the law does not say it, then that's up to Parliament to fill in that gap. The EBC cannot fill in that gap the night of the election for you. However, the judge did say, you know, the EBC could have done a better job, I think, kind of explaining and going through the process better with the various point of contacts with the opposition on that situation before it reached the court. So it's not as though the EBC did its job perfectly, but the criticism is more on the communication side, not on the technical legal side. And I think this kind of highlights, because think about it, right? Well, basically, somebody's going to have an issue with the election results and they're going to blame the EBC, right? And when you really get down to it, it doesn't matter which party is favored or which party is not favored, right? The incumbent right now, the PNM, they get a lot of, the EBC gets a lot of flack for assumed favoritism to the PNM. Without evidence, we can't make that. And I think there's something to be said about our public servants actually trying to be politically neutral. And it's interesting to think about that, because more and more, you know, it seems as though a lot of our various institutions and ministries, etc., try to be politically neutral. The problem, of course, is some funny business, not necessarily with the EBC, but some funny business kind of gets hidden amongst the, well, we're neutral. We don't take instructions from political office. And it does make decisions, policy decisions from the elected officials slow to implement because, you know, they are not answerable to you, but they're answerable to you kind of situation. It's a bit of a mess, to be honest. Goes back to, I think, what the old man, the silver fox himself said, constitutional reform, to kind of sort all of these problems out. Hopefully, maybe, if it goes that far. Of course, if we get it at all. Well, that's the daily review. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be speaking about some more smaller scale topics with wider scale implications. Stay tuned to Talking Point on WSN. We'll be right back.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup.
What about the other side? Well, Daisy 50% off offer. So you know.
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready. Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the things that's tied to some extent to crime is with regards to how do we bring up our young people? How do we guide them? And when necessary, how do we correct them? And here to speak to me is someone who is a bit closer to the youths than I am, both in his professional, his personal life, as well as in age. And of course, I'm speaking of Mr. Mark Anthony Peter. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Sean. Listen, I am 27. I go to bed at 8 p.m. I am old.
When I was 27, I did not go to bed at 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Although right now I'm going to bed sometime between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. So I mean, take that, make
a nap.
Somewhat of that with what you. No. I go to bed somewhere there until about midnight or 2. So like yesterday, I went to bed at 4, woke up at 2 a.m.
Don't you have work the next morning?
Yeah, well, I woke up at 2 a.m. So I was up from 2 a.m. until
Okay.
Yeah, this is the next morning. You're here with me the next morning. So now.
Wow.
One of the things we were talking about this issue, and you brought to my attention, I did not see the video, and unfortunately I don't have the actual video to play. Mm-hmm. But there was a viral incident that happened about a week ago. I'm not entirely sure when the incident within the video actually occurred. But we do have somebody's response to it, and he brings up a very good question. So let's take a look at this clip, and we'll respond after.
Yeah, there's a video circulating, going viral, of a young girl in school uniform being punished. Her hair is being cut. At times she's being beaten with a belt, and then it looks like a stick. She is being held by a grown adult male. At times she's being held by another younger person while being filmed. And my question is this: at which point discipline turns to abuse? At which point discipline turns to abuse? You cut her here, the indignity of being filmed while youngsters laughing at you. I understand at times people need discipline, punishment is necessary. But my question to you is, at which point discipline turns to abuse?
And the pronunciation errors notwithstanding, it's a good question, right? And I think it's one that is at the heart of the debate, because it seems as though after I left primary school and maybe even partway into my secondary school life, it became more of an issue. I'm not too sure internationally, but locally, because that's when strokes more or less was taken out. I think it was after I left secondary school. Strokes was taken out, and around the world now in certain countries, even for parents to discipline their children physically is frowned upon. I remember there was actually an athlete in North America. He did what his parents and grandparents did to him, he did to his child, and he was, berated for it, because you get like a stick off of a tree and to beat the child, and it might have been too thick of a switch, to be honest. So in this case, do we have a situation where we really don't understand, like, it goes too far? And are we pushing back against that too much?
Well, first of all, we need to know what abuse is. And I have with me, the Children's Authority. They outline physical abuse includes the punching, beating, kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, stabbing, choking, hitting with a hand, stick, strap, or other object, burning, or other forms of harm to a child that is inflicted by a person, whether an adult or older child, causing non-accidental physical injury ranging from minor bruises to severe fractures or death, etc., etc., and they list the signs. It is a really, really good question about whether or not, about where is the line between discipline or abuse. Thankfully, I'm blessed to say that I did not grow up like that, but I know other people who did. It becomes, so when I was younger, the extreme, I remember when the shift happened, and the extreme was we're doing too much, we're abusing them too much. And now I feel that there's a sense of sometimes we might even be a little bit too soft on them now, and then people are kind of, taking advantage of that. With regards to the particular type of video, I don't know. It's heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to watch.
You saw the video, right?
I did.
Was the account that the gentleman there
was fairly accurate. I didn't really watch it to read, because I could have barely watched it myself.
Yeah, you don't want to actually like absorb
it and internalize and that sort of thing. But what he said was actually pretty accurate, and I cannot imagine, one, the reason for a reaction such as that. There were suggestions floating around about why she was being beaten and what caused it or whatever. And you know how social media gets?
Yeah.
The comments are like, oh, well, you want to do this? Well, this is what you get, or whatever. But we need to ask ourselves, before there's any reaction, we need to ask ourselves why. Barely anything is done just out of kicks. And I mean that as on both ends, the reaction. If it was a case of disobedience, children don't react out of disobedience just for kicks. There's always a deeper reason for it. And then parents, as you rightfully said, if this is how they were treated, then the reason for them treating their child like that is because that's how they were treated. That's what they grew up with.
I mean, that's the thing. I could barely remember when the line happened, but I knew in secondary school some of my classmates still got strokes. I don't think I got strokes in secondary school. I ended up always getting detention when I was punished or something like that. And the last time I can remember anybody getting strokes was actually in Form 2. And whereas when I went into Form 3, I remember there was a situation where, for lack of a better way to put it, a boy was playing with fire in the middle of class, and the dean was there, and he saw him. And when I say playing with fire, I mean, right? I don't know why he thought this was the best time to do it.
Okay.
And the dean didn't punish him. He literally just put his arm around him, went back to class, put his arm around him, whispered to him, had a silent conversation. I was right next to it. I didn't hear anything of what he said. And that was that. Because I think the dean knew, okay, in this moment, I don't really need to go all out now, despite what happened. I think the correct tone, this student will get the message and it'll be fine.
Yes, correct. Well, that particular dean made a wise decision in that moment, because if pardon the pun, but you don't fight fire with fire. Pardon the pun, all right? Because if it is that the dean started acting crazy and he started, being like extra, for lack of a better term, then who knows what could have happened. The child could have gotten startled, he could have gotten enraged more, and the only way to defuse any sort of situation is to treat it calmly and to treat it with a level of, because at the end of the day, I think when people are reacting or behaving badly, the approach is always based on what they do, not who they are. And at the end of the day, human beings behave well and human beings behave badly. But at the end of the day, your approach should be, I think, in my opinion, your approach should be based off of, this is a human being that I'm approaching.
Right.
Not some sort of, I don't even approach my dogs that way, but not some sort of dog or wild animal where the reaction is, okay, you bite me, I'll bite back, or I'll try to run away or something like that.
Now, to some extent, though, I don't disagree with you, but I think a case could be made, because there have been times when people look at how certain individuals are disciplined for similar infractions, and they're like, ooh, unfair treatment, blah, 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 blah. Is it that we just, and you kind of alluded to this, we're not necessarily sure how to go about it anymore. And I think with the education system, teachers are just trying to play catch up with the syllabus, and it's making things very inefficient with the teaching, the ones who actually try to teach, right? And with regards to discipline as well, if the goalposts keep shifting, right, and the guidelines keep shifting, to some extent now, it's kind of difficult for you then to kind of set the tempo of, this is the expectations you should have on how we treat you when you break the rules, because we ourselves don't always know, in the upcoming term, if there's going to be some changes made.
Right. Yes. What do you mean by we ourselves? Who
like the teachers?
The teachers themselves. Yes, of course. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of instances. I've seen it since I was a child, but there are a lot of instances where children are approaching teachers with a level of violence and a level of, like gross misbehavior. And then the fear of the teacher is, okay, well, if this is how you are approaching me, I wonder how your parents will approach me if I discipline you, right? So in a sense that there are some teachers, there are some schools and fine institutions where the teachers lay down the law. They are very, very clear on what is acceptable and what is not unacceptable. And parents respected children, they are children, but it's dealt with. But then there are instances where the teachers may feel like their hands are tied, because if I don't discipline you, if I discipline you too much by someone's opinion, then that could mean trouble for me as a teacher, right? And then in some instances, teachers try to do the best that they can. They can't, and please keep in mind, and I always tell people this. I remember there was a discussion happening at my home, actually. I think it was a Christmas time or something like that. And one of my aunts, she was telling me that they live away, and they're like, this teacher, she's not doing what she's supposed to do, and et cetera, et cetera. I said, okay, but approach the situation with a little bit of grace. You have your one child. Teachers have everyone's children at a single instant. Growing up, I remember it was like at least 35 to 45 children in each class, in my class, and one teacher. They try to do their best. They do the best that they can. Parents, there's a situation that is happening, and we need to address it.
Now, I want to switch gears slightly, because there's also the concern that, okay, we don't know how to discipline, things will go too far, some people go back to time-tested measures, well, be them, right, and what have you. But now the flip side is, with regards to the teachers themselves, and they themselves might have all of these questions, well, how do I treat with them? One of the things, we've had this discussion before,
where the discipline matrix came up. And for severe situations, the third offense, that's when you start to look at expulsion, right? Reporting to the police and restitution, which I assume would be like monetary restitution, et cetera, et cetera. Suspension is second offense. And there was a situation where teachers were lamenting the fact that there was one student that had 20 suspensions. So one of the things we were like, how did it get so bad? Meanwhile, just recently, a Diego Martin Central student was beaten by 2 students from Diego Martin North who were reportedly on the verge of expulsion, right? And that school, I believe the principal is trying to deal with a disciplinary problem. She's coming in and trying to deal with it. But I do wonder if we just now, we have this situation where we don't necessarily know what to do with these students, and to some extent, we might have to go hard on them. Now, this is not beating them, but expulsion now and criminal records in this case with these 2 students, you know, is there room to get them on the right track? Or is it that the environment is just that they're in potentially guided them so far down the wrong path that it's very difficult now to redirect?
8:50 a.m. This is what you ask me.
Yes.
I'll be honest. Here's the thing. I would like to believe that there is always some path to redemption. I would like to believe that it's never too late for anyone, especially a young person, a young adult, especially a child, especially a teenager. The thing is, our approach has been too, what's the word? The approach has been a bit too reactive. Meaning, now work has been done. I'm not discounting that. I know a lot of teachers who've done a lot of good work, and a lot of teachers who've been involved in a lot of movements. I know of these stories. But the reaction is the approach has still been a little bit too reactive, and I think we need to, there's a time for detention, there's a time for suspension, but there is also a time to have some sort of psychological assistance, some sort of counseling in it involved, because like I said, things aren't always done out of kicks, right? You sit, you talk, you figure out what's happening, because some people may say that it feels a little bit weak, but at the end of the day, what that tells the person on some subconscious level, it tells them, you care enough about me or about the situation to, 1, treat me like I'm still human with a little bit of integrity, and 2, you care enough about me to want to know what's going on so that you can help me. It takes longer for some. It differs case by case. And I will say this, listen, we don't know what goes on in people's homes. We can only speculate based on our own experiences, based on our own knowledge. But at the end of the day, there must be some sort of sit down, and be very careful when you interpret this. There must be some sort of intervention, some sort of approach that is not just punishment. There are different forms of punishment, there's different forms of discipline, but it's not just rah.
Because you could argue like there's a cycle, you know.
Yes.
I am misunderstood, so I'm punished, and I don't feel that the punishment is fair, so I act out, then I'm misunderstood and I'm punished. Exactly. And we need something to break the cycle.
Exactly.
Now, but the flip side of that is, or my concern about that is, because I think you're right, I think one of the issues is we have like a one-size-fits-all mentality to education, right? And we don't necessarily try to cater education and see, okay, how do different people learn, and try to figure out individualized lessons plan. And maybe like this school is better for visual learners, this school is better for people who learn by doing, right? We don't have that. And I do wonder if it starts from there, because we do have counselors in the school, but I don't know if, because you're in an education system that isn't really catering your individual psychological needs,
even with counseling, it's only going to do so well. And then now as you get older, part of the issue might be, well, look, what's the point of me coming to school? What's the point of me listening to these teachers? I'm not getting good grades. I'm not seeing success in school. You know, I don't have necessarily the support of my family, or my family doesn't know how to support me. So life is not going well. But I'm a child. I don't necessarily know how to deal with that or how to fix that. I need guidance. I'm learning how to live. I can't be expected to be responsible for me. That's the whole point of being a minor, right? And I do wonder if what you just said there, ironically, because I say this all the time, the ministry, they don't be fooled. They get the highest allocation, but I think they're under-resourced. And more should be done, you know, across the board if we want to prevent these cases that have gone to the point of no return, or at least what we have now, it seems as though we have cases that have gone past the point of no return because we aren't equipped to bring them back with what we have now.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And I think, you see, when you're, especially, let's say you go to a school, let's say you're an intelligent child, but you go to a school where, and even regardless of what level of the school is, let's say you're getting struggle with the work, but you don't know why. You know, so let's say I'll use myself as an example. I was only diagnosed very late in life with dyslexia, right? And so there were things there's a long period of time where I just couldn't get the work. I just couldn't get it. I had extra lessons from as early as standard 3, all the way up to when I did GAPE, right? I never stopped because that extra repetition, that explanation, hearing it from someone else, it helped me in a sense, because usually the classes are much smaller, so there's a lot more individual attention that can be catered to. But for some reason I couldn't get it. I was a well-behaved child. I didn't give trouble, right? So my teachers definitely encouraged me. I was able to figure some things out on my own. Thankfully, my parents were also encouraging, but I can only imagine someone of a similar mental situation, cognitive situation, such as myself, but in a home where you're constantly being called lazy, you're constantly being called stupid, you're constantly being abused, and in terms of like, why can't you get this or whatever. And a lot of the times in those homes, the parents, there's some situations where the child gets further than their own parents. So therefore the parents don't always know how to deal with the child in that particular
When you say further in education.
Further education.
So the parent doesn't have any experience as to how that process is.
Exactly. The parent just knows up to that, and then the work that they did or whatever, but they don't know what that specific period is like for their child. Both my brother and I attended sixth form. Neither of my parents attended sixth form.
Right.
So they didn't really understand the rigor that there is in sixth form. And because they didn't go to sixth form, they didn't go to university either.
So it's the same thing.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. So it's almost like raising a child to excel, or in an excelling situation where you yourself, as the parent, was not able, by whatever circumstances, was not able to reach there. So it's almost like teaching is almost like raising a CSEC child or a CAPE child with the knowledge of CSEC or the knowledge of SEA.
Yeah.
If you understand.
I think it's even more apparent when you're trying to help someone through college, right? And it's one thing to say, okay, classroom, primary school, secondary school, A-levels, classroom settings, right? But now lecture halls or various other types of...
different.
It's very, very different, especially depending on the program.
Exactly.
The hours are different, right? And the level of responsibility, individual responsibility is different. Group projects get a little bit more different, right? And
do they really help with teamwork?
If the parent... I think it helps with you building up your tolerance of disappointment.
Oh my word.
No, it's true, because you will have to face that adversity in the working world, right? To some extent or the other. Not everybody could be lucky. I mean, WSN is a small studio, so we're tight-knit. But when you're in a big corporation, you randomly get thrown into whatever you get thrown into, right? Yeah. But I think now we've reached the point where, because again, the values of society, right? Mm-hmm. All we know right now is we punish. But I think we've hit this stumbling block of, yeah, but if we keep going down the punishment tree, right, if we go to the eventual conclusion, we're going to have a lot of young people kind of being kicked to the curb because we don't necessarily do rehabilitation well. Yeah. It's not like the labor market is willing to take convicts, and some young people get involved in things that's going to give them a criminal record, like those two young men, right? Do we need like a full overhaul, not just of the education system, but our cultural perspective on these things?
Well, we had the village, and the village is not here anymore. We had the village of, you did not have, the only adults in your life weren't just your teachers or your parents. You had the aunts and uncles, you had the family friends. The neighbors that were around you, and that's an important point that I want to make, because there are a lot of people that I consider people who raised me in different areas of my life, right? My parents raised me from birth up until, well, they still raised me to an extent. Yeah. I'm starting to raise them a little bit now, but the older I get. But there are people that I know I was able to count on in certain situations. My mom used to be involved in choir. My dad is a musician, but he's an accountant by profession. Right. So there are certain things that an adult or mentor who is in the same field that I'm in, there are some things that they would understand that my parents won't. Right, of course. So there are certain, there's something to be said about surrounding your child with mentors. There's something to be said about surrounding the students by the village. It takes a village, right? It takes a village, and we can't always depend on, we're all part of the different puzzle pieces of this life thing. We have the culture, we have family, we have the government doing the best that they can. Some areas need to improve. There are always areas that are going to need improvement. But we can't, each piece can't depend on the other to create the full picture. Right, we need to kind of move the whole system together, because they're interconnected, and a weakness in one would be a weakness in all. Well, folks, that just leaves the conundrum of, do we have the resources to try to touch on all of the various hot points on this thing? Because one of the things is, of course, as not just Mark implied earlier in this segment, but one of our other colleagues, Kemia Pascal, said, at the end of the day, the child has to go home where the child goes home, and not all homes are going to be a nice environment. So we don't just have to treat it from school, but also with family, environment. There's so many levels to this, and are we able to deal with it at a time when young people potentially are signing up to a life of crime? Well, we fear more than ever. That's the fear. That's the fear that some of my viewers have. But you could weigh in on this and voice your concerns, maybe give your own opinion on this or other topics. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines. This is WSN's Talking Point. Stay tuned.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andrew.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. So now is the time we open the phone lines. Last chance for the week. You could get all of your grievances aired right now. Even if you want to go back to that topic that I really hope we're not going to go back to again. But I mean, it is what it is. However, I would like to hear our viewers speak on this topic with regards to disciplining young people, guiding young people, mentoring young people. I mean, to some extent, do we have it enough? We used to have villages, and now it seems as though it's every man for themselves, and this is the result. So call in, the numbers are on your screen. I would just once again caution, please lower the volume on your TV once you get connected, because the TV is on the delay. If you listen on the TV, you're going to get confused. We have Petit Valley on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
And your guest there. This is a very good topic you all have this morning, and it's very complicated. The problem is with discipline. There are no manual really of parenting. Parenting, really, you are learning on the job, and you are learning probably from the experience of your brought up with your parents. So it's a very fine line with abuse and a little clout here, a bell there. In my times, I'm older than you all, probably by 20 years, my time, I was not abused, but a bell there, a tap there, and it didn't do me really nothing. I think it was good for me. I'm not agreeing with abuse. Abuse is where you tie up a child and you beat them with a piece of wood, you cut their hair, abuse. Now, it's very tricky now in North America. A child could pick up a phone and call the police for a little tap here, a tap there, and the police will come to lock up that parent. Now, West Indian parents, they still give them a little tap in America, I think. I have a friend call the police on, and she said, well, you let the state mind you for a little tap or here or there. So I am not for abuse. I don't know if it have any data on when you used to get a tap here, a tap there, that now where you can't even talk to the child good or watch or even give them a little tap here and there. So in a nutshell, I'm not for abuse, but a little tap here, a clout here, I see nothing wrong with it. But parenting is learning on the job. I have no manual of parenting. In some homes, parents might be, they grow up abused, they're on drugs, so all homes will be different across the board. Thank you this morning.
Thank you, caller. Before we respond to that, we have a caller from Santa Cruz waiting. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mark Anthony.
Good morning.
In listening to what you were saying a moment ago, Mark, for one thing regarding discipline, I believe we as adults do not listen to children. And we need to listen more so that we can speak to them without making them feel ashamed. Tell us anything that they need to tell us. Right? So I would put that out. But before, I'd like to share with you just 2 stanzas of a piece written by Rodney, an American. The name of the book is Remember When, and the name of the piece is Good Parenting. It have no substitute for good parenting. In my boyhood days, we had several parents. First, you had your real parents, your mother and father, and then a ton load of family, grandparents, uncles, aunts, godparents, and cousins, in addition to your teachers and any adults. Any of those people could have teach you the straight and narrow path, which sometimes meant cutting your tail. Today, when I hear them talk about corporal punishment in the schools and children's rights, I just want to laugh. My mother and some of them teachers would have surely make a jail if them laws was in existence then. Rampy must be just turning the grave when he hear them talking about children pushing drugs in school and bringing guns to class. 2-man rat can't live in the same hole, you know. And in Rampy school, it had only 1-man rat. That was Evans P. Rampasad. And I'll just stop there because it's a bit longer.
Thank you, caller. We have San Fernando.
That was our village.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. We have San Fernando on the line waiting. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning to your guest there.
Good morning.
I listened to your guest talk about the definition for abuse by the Children's Authority?
Yes, the Children's Authority.
And a couple of those things talk about hitting with hand and belt and so let me first say this. I have 4 kids. And if I have to go by the definition of that Children's Authority thing, well, all my children get abused because they get licks. Discipline is, you see, parenting is a whole different science. And I'm saying that it's a science. I have a son and I have 3 daughters. And as growing up as a youth, right, for myself, in my family, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I am second to last. And once I wanted to do something, Sean, I would do it. I was in primary school and secondary school, I was a very bright child. However, I had a wayward streak. And my mother intended that she was going to break that. And there were things that I would do, but I know it was wrong, you know. I knew it was wrong. And my brothers used to talk to me, and I used to tell them, I don't make up my mind, I'm doing what I'm going to do. And my mother made up her mind that you ain't going to do what you want to do because it's wrong. And there was a battle. There was always a battle. And I am so proud of what my mother did in those times. Getting involved. My mother was always involved. So we were in scouts. In secondary school, I played football. I did athletics. I ran. I long jump. It is about the parents understanding the complexities of each child and having to deal with those complexities of each child. One of the things that we're not seeing anymore in schools, there are a lot less male teachers in schools, and I can tell you that is part of the issue. Male teachers in schools, especially schools that are mixed with boys and girls, and boys' schools, though their male teachers bring another level of how do I put it, of authority within the system. And I think that is part of the problem, where there are a lot less males. And young boys, you all are young men, so you all understand when your testosterone started kicking and the behavior that comes out of that sometimes. And women dealing with that, especially these days, it's a bit difficult for them, eh? It's a bit difficult for those female teachers. So one of the things is we need to bring back a little more sport, because one of the things is at that age you have energy. Your secondary school students, after they come out of primary school, they have energy, and there are a lot less things for those young people now to expend that energy on, Sean and Mr. Peter, because when I drive around San Fernando, Sean, there are so many basketball courts and sporting fields in San Fernando, a lot of them. And on an evening, they are all empty. There is no one playing in them. In my day, every corner, you have a back street that the traffic not on. You have a small goal going on. Or the cricket. There is nothing going on now. Somehow, parents have to come outside and start to come out of their houses and get involved in the community and start to build back the community. Well, that's one of the problems. You have to build back the community, Sean.
Caller, I'm going to have to end you there because we have a caller that's been waiting. But thank you for that. Again, we'll try and respond and weigh in. But we do have a caller waiting from Faizabad on the line. Good morning, caller. Sorry for the wait. You're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning.
Sean, I think we need to approach this thing frontally. And I want to draw a reference with respect to the boys who would have beaten that kid unconsciously. The police and the social workers should get involved with both parents and children. We should have programs where you have deviant children coming to school displaying deviant behavior, where the dean and the teachers would have picked it up, reported to the authorities, and we have home intervention. We need to do something like that. The other thing, I heard Mark advance it, that, you know, children are ahead of parents in terms of the educational qualification and stuff, which I have no problem with. I agree with that. But I remember back in the 60s and 70s in Princeton, Moruga, Baracoa, and all kind of thing, where you had totally illiterate people. And when you look at the statistics coming out of it, these districts produce some of the best lawyers and doctors we have today. So, you know, I'm not disputing what you are saying, my brother, but I'm saying there's two sides to the argument. So we shouldn't advocate for one without representing the other. Because when we advocate for one, you know, we kind of hide the facts behind. We need to highlight they are good on both sides of the fence. We have to get government intervention, find the areas, the geographic areas where you have the deviant behaviors taking place. Have government intervention, because I'm sure they could identify it, Sean. It is plain to see it is coming from particular geographic locations of Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, my brother?
Thank you.
Take care. Have fun.
Well, okay, so I think we're more or less out of calls for now. So, but of course, still feel free to call in and interrupt us. But one of the interesting things is, you know, a lot of the callers, they're looking at how things went in their time. One of the callers even referenced the fact that, listen, my mother had to be a bit stern with me, but he didn't just say, well, I get licks. He also said that she was involved, his mother, in his life.
What I loved about that, what I really appreciate about that story, about his experience as well, and I acknowledge that experience, she spoke to him. She said, listen, I know you want to do what you want to do, but you're not going to do what you want to do in these particular instances because it is wrong.
Yeah.
She didn't, based on his what he told us, I'm assuming there wasn't any name calling. I'm assuming there wasn't any thing about feeling, there wasn't any intention of making him feel bad or anything like that, or making him feel small. She just came to him and said, listen, just like what I'm assuming maybe the dean in your school did, tapped him on the shoulder and said, this is not what you need to do right now. This is not the way that this is not how we do things. All right, so I need you to put that. That's what I appreciate. And the just want to make reference to the second caller. I can't remember where she was from, but
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz. She brought up the word of shame, and very often when we speak to each other, I find that we try to shame each other, and there's a lot of shaming happening, especially in the discipline. And there's a doctor a researcher, and I read her books a lot, Dr. Brené Brown, and she defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. So when we approach certain things from a place of shame, especially if we ourselves went through that same thing, it's projection of shame onto shame, as opposed to the great example of, listen, I know this is what you want to do, but you're not going to do it. This is not how we do things here. It's just simple of, it's approaching the act that you want to do or the act that you did as opposed to approaching the person. Because I've told a lot of young people, just because you've made sometimes when we make a mistake or we've done something wrong, there is an emotional and mental spiral that happens. And I told young people already, just because you've made a mistake, it does not mean that you are a mistake. It just means that what you did was wrong. But that does not change who you are, and it does not it does not make you feel any smaller. It doesn't make you feel any more. It doesn't make you any more unworthy.
Not to get sidetracked, but just to point out, and I do wonder if even adults, right, they don't realize they're going through that, which is why a lot of politicians, I can't be seen as wrong, so you have to be wrong. So now I'm going to do all kind of nonsensical things and have nonsensical arguments.
What is that called? Gaslighting. It's like, don't trust your own seeing eyes, don't trust your own hearing ears.
But I think, I can't remember if you said it or if Ms. Santa Cruz said it, about adults not listening to children. I think she said it.
She made reference to what
and I think it's not just not listening to what children say, but also not listening to their body language, their behavior, because they might not be able to tell you what's going on. They might not even have the words for it. And one of the things with regards, because with some of the organizations we've been a part of, we have interacted with kids like this, right? And it comes down to that whole thing about, look, they need to be understood, and they also need to feel as though you're not just there for them today, you're going to be there for them when they need you in the long run. That understanding, because if you take that away, they're back to square one, and they themselves don't necessarily, they can't state it. They don't know how to. They don't know how to navigate.
I was at a funeral last year, and it was the ever great Father Gregory who did the funeral, and this was somebody very, very close to me, and he said this person knew how to pay attention. They knew how to pay attention to people. They were able to recognize people's needs before the person themselves can even verbalize it. They were able to pay attention so well that they can see the dynamics of how people behave around other people. They can read between the lines of what people are saying and what they actually mean to say. And I think based off of, again, the Santa Cruz call of listening, I would broaden the word and being able and say pay attention. Pay attention to the child, because there are certain things that, one, they cannot communicate because maybe they're not equipped with the language yet, depending on how old they are. They're not always equipped with the language, and they're not always equipped with the maturity, social, mental, emotional maturity to respond to certain things. So when you are able to pay attention to your child, when you love that child so much that you're able to pay attention to that child and say something is going on, then you can encourage acts such as what the last caller spoke about immersing them into the community, about the more than one, I think the first caller mentioned, the more than one parents, the village.
Yes.
Right? Then you can guide them in a way that he says, you know what, I see this, and there's a gut feeling inside of me that says, maybe you need to, let me introduce you to neighbor 2 streets down, or let me put you in this community. And I think that would be good for you, and you'll find something there.
Now, a couple of things. One point, I hope I don't forget it, but before I go to that conceptual thing, because it seems as though, we have some old school mentalities where, listen, there's a difference between a tap and, railing. And to me, I guess part of it is, listen, if the child is injured, you've probably crossed the line very far, right? But then, of course, there's also emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and pain, could even if there's no injury, pain could become that.
To that point, you can abuse somebody without laying a single hand on them.
Or that.
You can abuse somebody without laying a single hand on them.
But, maybe it's let's not reinvent the wheel here somewhat, to some extent, because I get it. I think one of the things is the difference between good parenting is not necessarily what measures you use, because you could go too far with any measure, as you say, psychological abuse. Yeah. I don't have to lay a hand on you to psychological abuse you.
Parent, teacher, friend, anything like that.
And then to kind of wrap up my thought that I've been holding on to before, is it that part of it is not just, okay, what do we do with regard to disciplining children, but how do we prioritize, okay, in this situation, we need to do this, or in this situation, yes, I know they made a mistake, but if I shatter their spirit right now, it's going to cause more harm than actually rectify the problem, right? And they're going to keep spiraling, as you mentioned, right? How do we appropriately respond? Because I feel as though it's easy to identify something. You did something wrong, right? And even on societal issues and economic issues and whatever, it's easy to identify. But then how do you prioritize things? Okay, yes, they might have crashed my car, right? But do I literally now embarrass them, shout at them, rail at them, ground them, punish them, take away their rights, take away I do all kind of things, publicly denounce them? Or do I try to figure out, okay, exactly why did it get to this point and what do I need to do to not get this repeated?
That's a difficult question. As one of the callers said, I'm not a parent. But
you've had to lead young people as a teacher.
I have.
Groups, large groups at a time.
Let me tell you what I did. I did not make it about me. Because there's some of our reactions are not always towards the reaction, but as a reminder of authority. And I did not have to, I made a conscious effort not to use someone else's mistake that I have to correct to what's the word, to laud my position of authority.
Stamp your authority on
Exactly.
it, you know?
I have to correct, the fact that I already have to address it already reminds everyone of that. So now I have to take myself out of the equation. Am I going to react in a way that feeds my ego, that makes me feel good, that makes me feel almighty, high and powerful? Or do I meet them where they are, meet them in the space, emotional and mental space that they are, hold space for them, and tell them, look, I know this is how you're feeling, and I know you probably did such and such. I actually ask more questions than make statements, because I want to get a feel for it. I always ask, I always ask, how are you feeling right now? What made you do that? Ask questions, gather some information, and then you meet them where they are. Once you know where they are, you meet them where they are and said, okay, I understand. I've been there before. However, there's always a level of meeting them, then approach with a level of understanding, then say, this is not what we do, and then if you do this again, this is the consequence. Mm-hmm. As opposed to going straight to the consequence without even going through those steps.
Right.
There's a lot of power in saying we don't do that here. There's a lot of power in saying we're not going to do that right now because this is not the space to do that right now.
Because it's not appropriate, because it's not right.
Because it's not right, because because this is such and such. I'm not going to bargain with you. I don't believe in bargaining with people I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not going to be the gentle parenting that's a huge trend now. Oh, such and such, it's okay.
One could say you are to some extent being gentle, because it's not as though you slap them across the face and say, don't do it again.
Well, yeah.
But the flip side is you're showing authority without having to expressively make an example out of people. And more importantly, you are with that authority, how you're using it. Yeah. You're being stern without having to.
But let me also say this. Somebody said there's not a manual for parenting. There's not a manual for a lot of things. Mm-hmm. There are some things that may help you, that you can use as tools, but at the end of the day, we all have to do the work, no matter what space we are in. Before we come here, whatever topic, we have to have a discussion, we have to do whatever research we're able to do, and then we come on here and we discuss. Parents won't always get it right. I love parents. Parents are the backbone of a society, right? But at the end of the day, you expect me as a teacher to go to my workshops. You expect me to get my degree. You expect me to always have a lesson plan for every single class, for every single day of the week. We all have some level of work to do. And keeping relationships takes work. Being a good friend takes work. Being a good colleague, being a good mentor, it takes work. And you have to do that personal work. And and I always tell people, approach it from the place of not knowing. So therefore, whatever narrative you already have in your head that may not be true, it's already dispelled, and you can approach it with a certain level of clarity. I was going to say objectivity, but you can approach it with a certain level of clarity, and then the understanding comes into play. Then you say, we don't do this. This is not what we do. This is wrong. And let me tell you, I may not even tell you why it's wrong. I'm just telling you that it's wrong. And this is the consequence after.
Well, folks, what more can I add to that? But I will take one line out of what you just said there and add to that line specifically, parents are the backbone of society. And I think that's true. And we're living in a time where we're questioning is enough being done on the parenting side, especially with so many broken homes and single parent homes and deadbeat parents. Both fathers and maybe a lesser degree, we don't necessarily always have the statistics, mothers. And this goes back to what one of the callers mentioned, home intervention. I agree with you. As Mark said, you know, we have to get everything kind of working together. We can't try to solve it one area and hope that it'll cover the rest. And it goes back to what I most recently said. You know, we could identify the issues, like issues with homes and like which geographical areas has a lot of issues with the environments of where kids live. But it's the prioritizing now of how do we treat that? What do we treat with? What gets the most resources? And that is tied back to prioritizing the entire economy. And that's where it gets even more complicated. So while I'm here saying we need to do a better job as a society, our government needs to do a better job, we have to acknowledge it's not easy, which is why it's important that we find people who could approach things with clarity and objectivity.
And it starts with self. And it starts with self.
Folks, today's a good day to have a good day, as my co-host always says. We hope for you to stay safe out there from all that might come to harm you. This is Talking Point on WESN. Mark Anthony Peter, Sean Michael Small.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
No. Just a miscommunication. Mark Anthony Peter, Sean Michael Small. Stay safe. We will see you next week. Goodbye.
WESN.
I am Sule A. Joseph, and we are WESN, Content Capital. Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do in our country.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion.
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former Mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Obviously Morocco, because they went up to the semi-finals of the last FIFA World Cup in Qatar. So obviously they are the favorite. They have not won this African Cup of Nations since 1976. So it's been a while now. And Walid Regragui, Morocco's head coach, is looking forward to that because, well, 2 years ago there was very disappointing campaign finishing in quarterfinals against Egypt. We can watch also Senegal because they are the defending champions, and the Lions de la Teranga would like to win another one this year. It's going to be tough because it's rare in African football history to see a team winning twice or 3 times in a row the Africa Cup of Nations. But who knows? The problem is they are quite nice. They have a good feel of play. They are confident. I look at them later, not so far away. That was in October against Cameroon. But the problem is that their main stars, they are now in Saudi Arabia. I can talk about Sadio Mane. I can talk about Kalidou Koulibaly, the captain, as well. So we'll see whether they get the same level as in 2022 throughout the competition.
Now, you